Hello, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I am Tina. Today is my July wrap-up and August What's Up video where I tell you about the books I read in July and what I'm looking forward to in August. Personally though, like in my personal life, which I do have, in July I took vacation. We drove to visit family 6 hours or so from home, which was an experience as our Sea-Doo's trailer blew a bearing on the way, like on the highway, and we had to stop in a Canadian Tire parking lot for like 2 hours while my husband jury-rigged it back together. Trying to entertain my kids for 2 hours in a parking lot, not fun. Then at our hotel, he had to spend 2 hours in the dark parking lot continuing to work on it while some unhoused people kind of hung out and watched him. I bring them up because the next morning when we went to the car to kind of like leave, there were all sorts of snack foods left around the sea-doo, including a jar of pasta sauce. I believe they thought it was salsa because the food that they left, chips, unpopped bags of popcorn, was clearly food you buy when you're high. So they probably were like, ooh, salsa, and it was pasta sauce. That was entertaining. Then we went to a cottage for a week where the sea-doo broke down while I was on it, so I had to paddle it back to the shore like a loser, so that wasn't fun, and the starter was broken, so we couldn't really fix it. But the rest of the vacation was nice. I read some books, I went paddleboarding at least, spent some time with my kids, and we went to the used bookstore where I got my birthday present to myself, which was a stack of classic sci-fi. You can check out that video, what was last week, I think. Onward to reading. So I read 10 books in July. I read 4 fantasies, 1 classic sci-fi, 4 sci-fis, 1 nonfiction, and 1 classic. So I read A Gallery for the Barbarian, which is a very strange, kind of gothic sword and sorcery, fairy tale-ish, bizarre book about a skeleton man who basically falls in love with a barbarian, and he's his muse, and he paints him in all these various adventures that they go on. It's so much fun. I loved it. I also read Down Below Beyond by T.a Bruno, which was really fun. It was a space opera that had kind of Star Wars vibes to it about portals and friendship. It was really good. I read Emergent Properties, which is a novella about an AI detective that I thought had really interesting concepts, but the plot was kind of meh to me. I listened to Dopamine Nation on audiobook, which I don't really talk about nonfiction. Like, I don't really review it because I'm like, what do I do? Be like, I didn't really agree with this, or I agree with that. Like, I don't know. It basically talks about our addiction to dopamine in our brains and how that relates to actual addiction and ways that people are now approaching that, like from a psychologist point of view. The author is a psychologist, and it's really interesting. I really liked it. I wish it had more focus though on kind of people's addictions to like technology and like social media and stuff, because I think that was a bit more relevant to like my life, but I found it interesting nonetheless. I read Behind Blue Eyes, or listened to that one too, which is another self-published one, which was a cyberpunk, very violent, lots of sex stuff. It was fun. I also read Prophet, which was a kind of sci-fi mystery thriller kind of with a really heavy kind of romance theme to it. I liked it. It just wasn't didn't blow me away. I listened to The Bone Shard Daughter, which I reviewed on Friday, which I really liked. I actually listened to it like 2 months ago, but it just took me too long to get my review out. That's a fantasy novel, pretty standard. I read Frankenstein per request, and Frankenstein is what you expect. I read Shark Heart, which was a love story, and I really liked it. It was about a man turning into a shark. You can check out my review there. I thought it was fascinating. And I also read The Coming of the Terrans by Lee Brackett, which was a classic sci-fi, and it was interesting. When it comes to my favorite book of July, you all know it's A Gallery for a Barbarian. I loved that book to no end. Shark Heart was pretty close though, and as was Down Below Beyond. Those two were awesome. Anyway, coming up in August, I'm going to be reading Last Exit. I actually read that in July for the Interstellar Book Club, and the review is coming out on the 1st. I should have reviewed it today, but I did not. So I'm going to be reviewing that technically, I guess. I guess I read it in July, but I'm reviewing it tomorrow. It is a sci-fi fantasy about multiverse. It's interesting. You can check out my review. I'm going to be reading Lessons in Bird Watching from Angry Robot. This is a sci-fi political dark comedy, I believe. It seems weird, so that's cool. I also am going to be reading Green Fuse Burning by Tiffany Morris. This is a novella from Stellaform Press, which is an eco-fiction body horror, I believe, about a painter heading into the woods to paint through her grief over her deceased dad. It sounds really interesting. I got it from the publishers. I'm also going to be reading All the Worlds of Wonder by Melia McClure, which is I don't know, here's the microblurb. A playwright possessed by her muse, an actress desperate to succeed, and a doctor haunted by a lost love. Three people cross time and space to meet through the playwright's bizarre creative process. To create, the playwright must become her characters. To tell her tragic story, the actress must speak from the grave. To heal his harrowing past, the doctor must surrender to his patient, the playwright. So this seems really interesting. I don't really know what the genre is. I got it from I think it's Radiant Press. I got this from the publishers. So thank you very much to them. I'm also going to be reading the second Murderbot book. The first one I read when it first came out, however long ago that was. So I'm reading the second one with the Interstellar Book Club this month, so that'll be fun. My library has it, so yay, I don't have to buy anything. I am still listening to Children of Ruin by Adrian Tchaikovsky. That thing is so long. So we'll see if I finish it this month. I don't know. I might review it in September. I also have a couple NetGalleys. The Circumference of the World by Lavi Tadar, which I know will be surreal and subtle and smart. It's about caught between realities, a mathematician, a book dealer, and a mobster desperately seek a notorious book that disappears upon being read. Only the author, a rakish sci-fi writer, knows whether his popular novel is truthful or a hoax. Sounds interesting. And I also have South by Babak Lakomi. So this one's about B, a journalist, travels to the south of an unnamed desert country for a mysterious mission to write a report about the recent strikes on an offshore oil rig. From the beginning of his trip, he is faced with a cruel and broken landscape of drought and decay, superstitious believers of evil winds and spirits, and corrupt entities focused on manipulation and censorship. As he tries to defend himself against his unknown enemies, we learn about his father's disappearance, his fading love with his wife, and his encounter with an unknown woman. A puzzle-like novel about totalitarianism, surveillance, alienation, and guilt that questions the forces that control us. So I guess it's not a sci-fi. I guess it's a contemporary novel, but it sounded really interesting. So I actually requested that so long ago, probably January. So I'm getting around to it now. I have a couple more I want to talk about. I do plan on starting Torpor's End by E.A. Leah, the sequel to Rybakite on audiobook, which is a sci-fi thriller about spores from the moon. It's really fun, like Rybakite is, and I'm surprised it didn't get higher in the SBS of C this year. The narrator of the book is also the narrator of My What Branches Grow. She's awesome, so I'm excited to read something from her that isn't mine. I also got approved for the audiobook of Bookshops and Bone Dust, Travis Baldry's second book. I requested the EARC and they denied me. And then someone in the Interstellar Book Club, thanks Josh, said, oh, they have it on audiobook. And I was like, I'm requesting that. And they approved me, surprisingly. So I'm happy about that. If I have one regret in my reading life, it's not picking up Travis's Legends and Lattes when I first heard about it before he struck the deal with Macmillan, I think? I don't know. Unfortunately, my library has 3 holds on 1 physical copy. That's not too bad. 31 holds on 4 audiobook copies and 49 holds on 2 ebook copies. What? So I have an Amazon gift card. I might buy it and read it this month. The thing is, I wish I'd bought it when he was an indie. Maybe I'll just cheat on my husband and use his Audible credit for it and hope he doesn't notice. Yes, we share Audible. We pick one every other month. He picks nonfictions and I pick, Legends and Lattes. We'll see. I might just jump into Boneshops and then decide to go to Lattes. I mean, what if I'm one of those weirdos that doesn't like Legends and Lattes? What if? Anyway, I'm forgetting something. Yes, Joseph Sale. He reached out to me and asked me if I would review his The Claw of Craving, which is this. For what is Carcosa? For Alan Chambers, a jobless loner, it's the answer to his problems, or so he thinks. Rejected by family and friends and soon to be homeless, Alan makes his desperate bid to discover the truth of this miserable reality by journeying to an occult brothel, where it's said the worthy might obtain passage to this fabled land of Carcosa. Proving one's worth is more dangerous than Alan could have imagined. So that sounds really fun. So I'm hoping to squeeze that in at the end of August. If not, it'll be in September. But yeah, so that's all the books I'm going to be reading in August. Who knows if I'll get to any more? Probably not. And yeah, let me know if you've read any of these or if you request any of these on NetGalley for those 2 that I did. Stuff like that. So yeah, thanks.